This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at pm-podcast.com or send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com. Hello and welcome to this premium episode number 175. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast. Nice to have you with us. You are listening to a premium episode. This means that only you, our paying premium subscribers, get to hear it. Thank you very much for your financial support of the Project Management Podcast. Last week, we welcomed 5 bloggers on the program to take a look back at what's been going on in project management over the past few months. So now, let's turn around and let's look into the future. I wanted to know from our group what they think is currently the cutting edge of project management, what trends they see, what trends they would also like to write about, what they feel is missing from the PMBOK guide, and if there is anything that they see on the horizon that will come after Kanban, Scrum, and Agile. The bloggers that you will hear from today are Peter Taylor, Josh Nankivil, Terry Dersher, Elizabeth Herrin, and Soma Bhattacharya. And now, here are a crystal ball and a few predictions for you. Enjoy the pulse. Hello, Terry, and once again, welcome back to the Project Management Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Cornelius. Always a pleasure.
Let's begin with the most important question once more. Let's remind our listeners of what the name of your blog is and where they can find it.
Sure. The name of my blog is The Enterprise Navigator, and it can be found out at blogs.planview.com/tdorsher, or you can simply go to the PlanView homepage and select blogs from the resources menu.
Okay. The topic of this interview here is towards project management trends. And I know that PlanView, I believe once a year, you do a PMO survey. And based on that survey, you come out with lots of trends and interesting findings. So what have you discussed on your blog in regards to the trends that you found in that survey?
Sure. We do a PMO 2.0 survey actually every 2 years, and we finished up our trending survey in December 2010, published the report in January. And that survey was very interesting compared with the 2008 data in that it was really taking a look at what the impact of the recession and the economy had been on PMOs, particularly corporate PMOs. And, I think probably the most important insight we've got is that unlike so many past cycles in the economy, the corporate PMOs seem to have survived a little bit better than historically it has in the past. So, we didn't see nearly the amount of carnage that we suspected might occur as people reduced staff and really ran more lean. There was a lot of comments that were included we had 565 respondents, so it was a pretty large survey, and a couple hundred comments that were anecdotally provided as well. And there was a lot of insight there around how the corporate PMO was really being repurposed and refocused to help the organization, get as lean as it could in terms of how it could operate more efficiently. Now, certainly the PMOs had a reduction in staff. There's no question about that. And obviously the size of project portfolios went down along with discretionary spending. So I found it very interesting how the PMO was shifting gears in terms of what its role was in the organization. And the fact that it was, not just wholesale removed as a cost-cutting component. So that's telling me the PMO is starting to be recognized for the value that it can bring in times of intense change.
Mm-hmm. And if I remember correctly, one of the things you saw was that PMOs are now also beginning to, reach into operational activities, not just straightforward project management related activities, right?
Right, absolutely. I mean, if you stop and think about it, the PMO is there to help facilitate the organization to do whatever its mission is, and a big part of that is to help the organization make decisions. Now, historically, the PMO has certainly helped with the project portfolio, which was really ultimately a discussion in organizations about what products or services or assets do we need to change or modify or get rid of. But certainly, I think there's a growing recognition that before you can have that discussion, you've got to understand a little bit better where you are as an operation before you can understand what you need to change and what that change strategy is going to be that ultimately drives those project management discussions and decisions. So more and more we're seeing the PMO to be the consistent element to help shepherd that process along. And then obviously once you get the results and the deliverables into operation, managing the life cycles of those respective products and services as well. For example, I was very surprised to see the number of PMOs. About 60% of all application portfolio management initiatives are being run in PMOs now, which I found very interesting.
Let's take a look into the future here. What trends do you see in project management? Anything on the horizon maybe in regards to project management methodologies?
Boy, I think we're seeing much the same way we are with PMOs in the world of project management. I'm seeing a very rapid uptake of interest in how to simplify and provide more flexibility around how project management is being executed. Now, obviously, we're all aware of the fairly significant trend around taking an agile approach for software development, but I am seeing that well beyond the arena of SDLCs or even IT these days and more into how do we relay that to be more adaptive with project management in general in other areas of the business. There's been, I can't remember the last time I went to an industry event and there wasn't something on the agenda about agile project management or adaptive project management. And usually it wasn't just specific to IT. So I think that is something that we're going to see more and more in the future because of the levels of uncertainty we're dealing with. It's going to require us to be much more flexible. And I think it really aligns better with the way we all work day to day in terms of how we really need to manage our projects. So the heavy methodologies they're always going to be relevant for construction and the big monstrous projects that have to be done in series. But across the board, I'm seeing a lot more interest in the area of being more adaptive and not much definitive guidance out there on what that means and what it looks like.
Talking about heavy methodologies, let's talk about a heavy framework here. December 31st, 2012 is the expected release date for the PMBOK Guide 5th edition. Are there any topics that you feel that are missing in the PMBOK Guide and should be added?
Well, first I'll start by saying I've been a member of PMI since, 1990, mid-90s, somewhere around there. I forget. So I'm very impressed with what they've been able to do to forward project management as a discipline. But just last week, I went back and I re-reviewed the 4th edition, thinking about what we just talked about. And even in the glossary, there was no mention of Agile. Yet we still had several pages talking about how to do precedence diagrams. So one of the things that I think is vitally important for PMI and for the PMBOK to stay relevant with what's going on these days is it has got to be more responsive to the rapid changes that are going on in the industry. So I'm really looking forward to see the next edition of the guide and hoping that it's going to do a lot more to address alternative approaches to how to do project management that are a little bit more aligned with what people are actually doing day to day.
All right. Once again, blogs.planview.com is the place to find Terry Dersher's Enterprise Navigator. Thanks for being on the program again today.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Cornelius.
Hello, Soma Bhattacharya. Now that I know your name, welcome back to the Project Management Podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Great to be back.
Once again, please tell our listeners the name and the URL of your blog.
My blog is called Stepping into Project Management, and the URL is steppingintopm.com. But also at the same time, I opened a beta site, which is called beta.steppingintopm.com. And it is a site which brings in project managers and newbies together. So I have two sites right now.
Good. I'll make sure that we put both those links into the show notes on the PM Podcast's website. This interview today is about project management trends, and we want to see if there are any trends in the future for you. In particular, we want to talk about whether or not you see any trends that you would like to explore on your blog.
Oh, yes, most definitely. I think the fact that virtual workers or, as they say, digital nomads are so in right now, and, more I explore and more sites I see and more people I talk to, I think the people are going virtual has become sort of a phenomenon right now. And I definitely would love to actually talk to project managers, interview them, or find more about them on can project managers actually go virtual and, not have a fixed location, not have a desk, just manage people globally or in a particular location, but you can work from anywhere, or you don't have to report to a certain person. So you could be a freelancer, you could be working for an organization or company, but can a project manager actually go virtual and do his or her job? So I'm hoping I can cover more about it in the coming post in my blog and see how it goes.
Yeah, why do you want to talk about this particular trend?
I think because, people talk mostly about Agile or Scrum or new things coming in, new certifications coming in, like PMI launching the new Agile certification and things like that. But I think with every certification, with every single goal that we look forward to, the ultimate aim is to be how good a project manager can you be? Can you deliver your project on time? Is your cost estimate correct? How much risk are you covering? What are your backup plans? Where are your resources located? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, if you have to prove how good a project manager is, and can a project manager be as good as you are while you're working in a physical office? Can you be that good if you're working virtually? Because I know people who are completely going virtual. There are companies who are going virtual because they're trying to cut back on cost. Because of the recession, the economy, and the fact that everything is changing around the world globally, people are trying to do different things. And I think the entire trend of virtual workers is actually coming into the mainstream of work. And so why not? I mean, if everybody else can do it, why not project managers? So I think it's something very interesting for me.
You also mentioned before we started this interview, you talked to me about the fact that you're currently in India and that you noticed that the project management that you do in India is more in the back end versus when you were in the United States, you were more in the front end. So you were client facing, while right now you are back-end facing. Does that also have something to do with your intention of writing about this trend?
I would think so, because I think whether you're in the United States or you're in India, I mean, the fact that I'm in India and I see actually a lot of companies who are going virtual, they don't even have a physical office, and yet they manage to complete projects. They manage to get really good corporate clients and similar things. So I think people in India don't go virtual as much or are not as experimental as of now than people in US are, because Tim Ferriss wrote the book for Work Week long ago, and all he talks about is how you can automate your business so that you can enjoy your virtual life, so you can travel all over the world and yet have an automated income. So I think for me, going virtual is something that people ultimately want to do. I mean, people want to retire young, people want to be successful in their life. And if we can take the entire concept of being a successful project manager and put the project manager in a virtual situation, because, in any case, a project manager in US is probably working with some outsourcers, whether it's in India, China, Brazil, or some other country. So every project manager at some point is used to working in a virtual environment where you're not really face to face with your developer or your outsourced team. So I think people have a basic understanding of what it is to go virtual. But going completely virtual and saying I can sit at home and I can do my project and complete the project on time without actually having to commute to office every day, I think is something that people should explore more and see if it really can be done and whether it's successful or not.
Excellent. And here is my call to all you listeners out there. If you are a project manager who is working virtually and you would like to help Soma in her research, then go to her blog, steppingintopm.com, and get in touch with her so that she can learn from you and blog about it, and we can hear next time in one of our next interviews about this trend and see what Soma has found. Is that a good idea, Soma?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for doing that.
Absolutely. So once again, thank you for being on the program. The URL to your blog is steppingintopm.com. I appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me. It was wonderful talking to you.
Hello, Elizabeth. Welcome back.
Hello, Cornelius. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yes. So let's remind everybody of the name and the URL of your blog.
My blog is called A Girl's Guide to Project Management, and you can find it online at www.girlsguide2pm.com.
Okay. And just like with the other bloggers whom we've interviewed, with you, we want to talk about trends in project management as well. So have you blogged about any topics that you would consider to be at the cutting edge of project management?
Well, my interest at the moment is in social media tools for project managers, given that my book came out in October about that. So that's been a real focus for me over the last year, and I've blogged extensively about it. But I honestly thought the topic would peak and then drop off, and it still wouldn't be considered a trend, because I've been talking about it for 2 years. I think my first presentation on social media for project managers was 2008, and I still get the same sort of questions when I speak to people about it. So it makes me think that people are adopting social media tools at a much slower rate in the workplace than I originally thought. So I think maybe it's not cutting edge because it's been around for a while, but I still think it is a trend that we'll see more of this year.
Mm. And have you seen any other trends in project management?
I think I've seen a trend towards projects around sustainability and green things. I was recently contacted by an MSc student who's researching the links between project management methodologies and sustainability. So I think there is growing interest both in the academic world and in sort of practitioner level about doing projects in a sustainable way, a green way.
Any other trends that you would like to focus on in your blog, and why specifically that trend?
Well, I don't think this is necessarily a massive trend, but I don't see that many people who are writing about program and portfolio management and project leadership. So I think they're all topics that I'd like to cover in the future. I think portfolio management is something that goes around in cycles. I think there's a cycle of let's organise everything into a portfolio office and have everything centralised, and then a few years later it's all devolved out to the business again. And I think we're seeing an upward tick in portfolio offices. So we might see some more news and things about portfolio offices this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's make a left turn here and let's talk a bit about, Agile, Kanban, Scrum, because these have been around for quite some time. Do you see anything on the horizon in regards to methodologies, frameworks, lean ideas in project management?
Well, I've seen that PMD Pro is a new approach, although I'm not sure it's really a methodology in the true sense. And PMD Pro is about applying project management principles to a non-governmental organisation environment. So essentially it's about making charity money go further by improving the project management abilities of the people who are implementing community projects. So it's not methodology specific in that you can use it alongside Prince2 or you can use it alongside CAPM or PMP. And so in terms of framework, it's an emerging framework to get the most out of non-governmental organisation performance.
How is it spelled exactly?
It's PMD and then Pro.
Oh, okay.
Honest,
PMD Pro. So it's not PM Depot, it's PMD Pro. Okay, because that's what I understood.
It's probably something like Project Management Development Professional or something like that. As a
okay.
Actually, I don't know what it stands for. I'm just guessing, but could be that.
All right. Well, why don't you write a blog post about it, and people can then go and read about it on your blog. Perfect.
Good idea.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time again today.
Thank you.
Josh, welcome back.
Great to be here.
Once again, let's begin with a reminder of the URL and the name of your blog, please.
I forgot. No, just kidding. No, the blog is PM Student, and it's at pmstudent.com.
All right. So, in this interview, we want to talk a bit about trends, looking into the past, looking into the future. So my question for you, have you blogged about any topics that you consider to be at the cutting edge of project management?
Yeah, there's a couple that I've written about in the past. I've written quite a bit about critical chain, project management, things like that. But most recently, I've been blogging quite a bit about Kanban, which is something that I've been using with my teams for the past 6 or 7 months now. And it's just it's a great way to have a visual flow to your work. Having a value stream to your work that's a consistent manner of organizing and managing and communicating your work with the team. Everybody knows what everybody else is working on. We're all focused on one thing at a time, and we don't move on to something else until we get done with that. So it's great for, eliminating multitasking, which is something that I write about every once in a while that I abhor. And in general, I think that Kanban, if done well, can do a whole lot for a lot of projects.
Yeah, and people will remember that at the end of the last interview, we joked about you having a Kanban board on your fridge at home. So it seems to me like you're a believer. This seems to really work for you, not only on projects, but also at home.
Yeah, and I'm a skeptic about this stuff. So like I said in the last interview, I tried it out myself with a personal Kanban first, and then once I was ready to, just try it out, and if it didn't work, I just scrap it. And then I tried it out with one of my teams and let that go for about a month and see how that was going before I did it with another team. And then, finally it was with my wife at home, because I've got to test it out on everything else first before we go there, right?
Yeah. So, and this whole journey is on your blog.
Yeah, I've written quite a bit about. I do focus on just helping people who are new to project management, but I've written quite a bit about Kanban as well. If you go into the menu, you can find a Kanban category, and you can see all the different things that I've written over time.
Right. So people interested in learning more about Kanban and getting to know the basics of it, on your blog is where they will find that.
Yep, and if you go to the menu, I've got there's a methodologies. I've got a becoming a PM and then being a PM. And if you go under being a PM, I've got a methodology section there. So where I've written about critical chain or Kanban or Scrum, those types of things are all categorized that way.
Right. So is there a particular trend that you would like to explore next? And if so, what is this trend?
Yeah, I think along with the Agile and the Kanban focus, I haven't written a lot about user stories and some of the other, planning poker, some of the other techniques and tools that I use on a daily basis, but just haven't really had a chance to do much blogging about yet. So I'll probably be doing much more of that in the future as well.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I have to ask you this, Agile, Kanban, Scrum, they have been around for quite some time. Do you see anything on the horizon here again in regards to, I know it's the wrong term, but let's call it this anyway, in regards to project management methodologies? I
think it's very possible that as I've started to get back into Kanban and started focusing on lean, really Kanban is kind of a lean focus. I've also started to look back at what I've thought about and read about and written about before in Critical Chain. And so I think that there's probably some kind of marriage between all of the experience and knowledge that I've gained over the years with Critical Chain, Kanban, and Agile, and Lean too, and kind of coming up with some new innovative ways to use those on my projects. One of the things that I've had a little bit of difficulty with is translating the Kanban flow and workflow into a more traditional like waterfall type schedule or like a scheduling tool of some sort. So doing forecasting out into the future and things like that. So because with time boxing, in Scrum and Agile, you can start to get a feel for the velocity of your team, and based on that, you can start planning out how Sprint 7 is going to be in June and stuff like that. You can start to get an idea of that. So I think trying to bring some of that together and maybe put some of that around Kanban might be some things that I know that I'm going to be looking for, and hopefully there'll be some other development too from other people out there in the community.
All right, and those people interested in that, once again, can stop by at pmstudent.com and learn about all of this. Thank you for being on The Pulse today.
Great to be here.
Peter, once again, welcome back onto The Pulse.
Thank you.
So, just as a reminder for our listeners, what is the name of your blog? Where can they find your blog?
Okay, the name is The Lazy Project Manager, and they can find it at www.thelazyprojectmanager.com.
All right. So what trends in project management does the Lazy Project Manager see today?
Well, because I have a proper job, I'm particularly interested in PMOs, project management offices, or whatever you decide PMO stands for. And I've seen a significant rise in that, and I'm fascinated to explore what's going on. I think it's a wonderfully diverse subject area, because the PMOs can be quite a lot of things. Actually, they can be a single department of activity. They can operate at an enterprise level. In my world, they operate in a way that I talk about as outreaching. So we have an internal PMO. We have all of our project managers reporting to the PMO. But because we service customers around the world, we engage with the customers' PMOs, and it's PMO talking to PMO, a peer-to-peer activity. So I think that's a hot topic, and PMOs, there's still some challenges out there. It's still a bit of a tough world, but I'm seeing more and more PMOs secure and growing within organizations than there are casualties.
And when you say growing within the organizations, are they growing only in the PMO traditional areas? We manage the project managers as resources, we manage projects, or do you also see them growing outside of traditional PMO areas? Like, all right, we're now taking over the management even of day-to-day tasks in our organization.
Well, I see growth in two areas. I think one's a great area, which is the fact that I'm seeing more and more PMOs getting closer and closer to strategy within organizations. I think executives are beginning to see the value of the PMOs, and this is the bit that's going to secure their existence moving forward. So this connection to strategy, fantastic. I'm also seeing, and I heard the other day someone talked about, we all know business as usual, but I went to a presentation where they talked about the fact that it was about the Olympics coming to the UK, and it's part of that was described as projects as usual. It was somewhere between a project, which is new, unique, and its normal. Exciting, risky venture, and business as usual, which is just pure operation. It's an activity in between. So I think there is an area where PMOs are beginning to, if you like, see this kind of involvement of operational activity, which is, is it purely a project? Perhaps not, but they are stretching that way, yeah.
Right, and sticking with the topic of trend, but looking a little bit at your blog and into the future of your blog, is there a particular trend that you see in project management which you would like to explore on your blog, and why this particular trend?
Okay, this is a very selfish one, because the next book is going to be about project branding, marketing of projects, and it's an interesting one because I'm just completing a survey on this, and if any listeners want to join in this one, then they can go to my website and do the survey, because I'm trying to find out how people go about marketing their projects, how they go about branding their projects, and so far, I've had some great feedback. But it seems to be something that not a lot of people apparently do, and yet marketing, I've always found, is a hugely important part of a successful project. These are change situations, change deliveries, and that impacts people. And yes, there will have been a core group of people that would have approved and assessed a project to begin with, but there's a whole bunch of other people that generally are affected by the project deliverables, and marketing of projects is very important.
I agree completely. I throughout all my career, I have managed small to medium-sized projects, often in a consulting capacity. So you hired me onto your company so that I would manage your project. And oftentimes it was difficult for me to, sell certain activities to my customers, sell risk management to the customer. One of the most difficult things to do, because, there is all that you produce really is a document. Right, a document that talks about the risks and how we will deal with the risks and what we'll do if a risk occurs and something like that. But they don't see any, there is no physical result, so to speak. So you really have to talk a lot to them and explain to them that, without doing risk management, we may fail on our project. So it's an important part of the project that I manage for you, and therefore we need to do it. And I agree, that is part of the project marketing. What other areas do you see where project marketing is important?
Well, I'm having some real fun, because part of the survey I'm doing is actually asking people to, and through some LinkedIn discussions, I'm asking people for their great suggestions of project names, and there's some superb acronyms coming up. Some very unfortunate ones, which weren't actually meant to be what they actually ended up being, and that. So I'm enjoying that. I think project naming is an important thing, and I'm very keen to explore some of the the higher level. I mean, do people actually invest in some sort of a branding? This is a project. It's going to we need to convince people this is going to be a big thing. It's going to be with us for some time. How much investment goes into the actual considering of the brand of the project up front, or how much is actually just ongoing marketing, PR, advertising, whatever you want to call it, through the process of the project? And when does it start as well? When does it start?
Right. When you mentioned the naming of the project is important, I remember years ago I was tasked with the project of discussing the offshoring of certain development resources in our company, taking them from the US and offshoring them to, I believe it was in India. And the first thing that I did is I just had some fun with the project name, and I came up with all these great names that would turn into a really bad acronym. Okay, and let's see. I think I called it Strategic Outsourcing Developers Offshoring, which then when it turns into sod off.
Yes, I can see that one. That's very good. Maybe this is a great technique for team building.
But the strange thing is, nobody here in my company here in the United States knew what sod off meant. It seems to be a British phrase, and people looked at it and they go, "What does that mean?" So it kind of backfired on me, but I still think that was one of the better projects.
Yeah, that's a good one. You do have to be careful. There was one I was involved in, which actually was developing a methodology, and as a throwaway line, one of the guys in the initiated meeting.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. I just realized what the acronym stands, what acronym would come out of that. Yes.
Yeah, so we were trying to develop a new methodology, and because there had been a lot of attempts at creating a common methodology in-house, someone just piped up they hoped this wasn't a YAMI, which is yet another methodology initiative. And everybody laughed and thought that was funny, a YAMI, but it seemed to catch on, and actually we had to do some counter marketing quite early on, because actually we wanted to get this out as a very positive way, and the last thing we wanted everybody talking about, hey, here comes the YAMI. So you do have to be careful.
Yeah, all right, agreed. Okay, what we're also going to do is we are going to put the link to your survey into the show notes. So everyone who's interested in taking your survey, please go to the PM podcast to this episode and click on the link to Peter Taylor's survey. Thanks for being on the program, Peter.
Always my pleasure.
And that was Peter Taylor, Josh Nankivil, Terry Dersher, Elizabeth Herrin, and Soma Bhattacharya on the pulse of project management, in particular in regards to future trends. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget, if you yourself have a blog and would like to be part of the pulse, then write to me to be included. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. As always, you can find us on the web at pm-podcast.com. If you are a PMP or a PGMP and you're looking for a simple and effective way to earn your PDUs, then try the PDU podcast. Get a new webinar and at least one new PDU every month on autopilot. Stop by at pducast.com. That's pducast.com. Please send your emails to info@pm-podcast.com, and when you write, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. They say only fools and horses work. I guess that's why we call ourselves project managers. Until next time.